Alright, so Kraven's hunt for Spider-Man and Harry go from 0 to 100 real quick. The Sinister Six begin to double cross each other, and Peter Parker starts to show how he's leveled up as a Spider-Man. Welcome back to Keepin the Comic, and we're jumping back into Ultimate Spider-Man here with issue number 14. Now, we pick up right where we left off here from the last issue with Richard Parker in the Black Pico Spider-Man suit trying to dodge some cat-like claws here from the new Black Cat. Now, while fighting, Richard asks her, he's like, yo, who are you? And she's like, I've already told you, I'm the new Black Cat. And the only reason why I am is because you and your friend threw my father off a building. Because as a reminder to Felicia, she thinks that the old Spider-Man and Harry threw Walter Hardy off a building back when they first met. But Richard tries to tell her that she's got the wrong guy and how he doesn't know who her dad is. And even if he did, he wouldn't have pushed him off a building. So Felicia isn't buying it. And her next strike gets real close. And I gotta say that Richard's doing a pretty decent job here of dodging these hits. Though, to be fair, as we'll find out, this is a rather young Felicia Hardy, so maybe the difficulty wasn't too high, but still, anyways, it's pretty impressive. Now, because Felicia was intensifying her attacks, Richard does the only thing that he could think of. He pulls down his mask and he reveals that he's not Spider-Man. So Felicia is a little shocked. She's like, wait, you look young. How old are you? And then Richard's like, I'm 15 and a half. So now Richard returns the question. He's like, how old are you? And she says, I'm almost 17. So Richard's like, okay, so 16. And then Felicia adds, and a half. Now Felicia's all, so I guess you're really not Spider-Man, are you? And Richard's basically like, yeah, I said that. I was direct, empathetic, I projected, my enunciation was clear, and I used declarative sentences. So then Felicia picks up on it. She's like, so I guess you read a lot of books, don't you? And Richard replied, he's like, yeah, a few. And then he introduces himself. He's like, I'm Richard. And then she goes, I'm Felicia. Now, before we continue their conversation, we jump back to Peter and Harry, who are still currently right now out in the Savage Land trying to escape. Remember, they're being hunted by Kraven the Hunter. Now, right now, they're marching to get to the edge of the Savage Land. And it seems that they have temporary control over one of the beasts that are there, but not without sustaining some injuries here because we see Peter wrapping a bandage around his left hand. Now, Peter only has one thing on his mind, which is that Kraven knows about MJ and the kids. And he keeps repeating that to himself over and over. And as they trek on, Harry starts worrying that they might be lost. Noticing Peter is still in his own head, Harry tells him, he's like, bro, you need to focus right now. You need to focus on the present. And now they have to succeed here before doing anything about what's out there. And Peter needs to come to grips with what has to happen. And we know that Harry wants to deal with Kraven directly, but Peter just wants to escape and then get back to his family. So Peter replies, he's like, listen, don't tell me what I have to do. I know what I have to do. And in what order? We escape first, we hide our families, then we suit up, and then we take care of business. So then Harry asks a question. He's like, what do you do after that though? Do you really think that you can hide from these people forever? And Peter, not wanting to really think about it or engage in that conversation, he's like you said, let's focus on the now. I'll worry about later if we get the chance. So then right then and there, the baby dinosaur gets shot in the head, causing Harry and Peter to fall off. And sure enough, who was behind it? Kraven the Hunter. Now Peter, a little bit of a haze here. He's trying to get up, but then he sees Harry and Harry's like, yo, I'm stuck. So Peter asks if Harry saw who it was, but Harry's like, no, something's wrong with my leg in addition to that as well. So then Kraven fires another bullet at the dinosaur, basically removing its face off clean. And then Harry yells, he's like, yo, get down. So then Kraven starts taunting now. He's like, now, come out and play. It's no fun if you simply wait for your death. So then Harry and Peter, they're hiding behind a rock, with Harry confirming that his ankle might be busted. So Peter asks a question. He's like, yo, can you walk? So Harry says, he's like, bro, I don't have a choice. So then Kraven fires again at their cover. And then Peter points over to Harry and he's like, listen, you make a run for the jungle. And he asks Harry, he's like, can you make it? So Harry's like, yeah, I can make it. And then Peter decides to distract Kraven, telling Harry to go for cover. And Harry's like, distract him? What does that even mean, right? So then Peter dashes out and starts taunting Kraven to shoot at him. And of course, Kraven's like, all right, if this is what you want, I'll oblige. And he starts firing round after round here at Peter Parker. Blam, blam. But then Peter uses his reflexes and he dodges every single one of those hits. So then after that, Peter and Harry, they regroup and Harry calls him. He was like, yo, that was really dumb, bro. So then Peter explains, he's like, I think I can sense when Kraven's about to shoot. And before he really could kind of explain it, he was like, don't worry about it. Let's just kind of keep it moving. So then Harry's not sure that he can make it. He's like, yo, I think I'm going to slow you down. But at that moment, Mo Man appears and he tells him, he's like, yeah, you're not going to get out of here, at least not without any help. And then Mo Man claims he's like, I'm a man of means. And then he begins to talk about how he's annoyed by this disturbance that is here in the Savage Land. Because remember, Mo Man was been pretty apprehensive about even going forward with trying to hunt Harry and Peter in this thing in the first place. He was never really on board. He just kind of went along with it anyways. Now, of course, Harry immediately distrusts him. He's like, yo, aren't you one of them? And then Mo Man says, he's like, he's more of them than he is with them, but yes. And then clarifies that Kingpin doesn't even know about this little escapade that's going on right now and how this is all Kraven's plan. So then what Mo Man does is that he has his Moloids lead Harry and Peter into a cave so that they could escape. Now, meanwhile, Mysterio shows up after Mo Man had left Harry and Peter. And Mysterio says that he's just observing this dangerous game that Mo Man is playing. And then Mo Man's like, I regret ever telling you about him, and I regret ever telling you about them being here. And he's referring to talking about Kraven being there, and of course also Peter and Harry being there as well. So Mysterio, he's like, listen, you did the right thing and I won't forget it. And then Mo Man's like, I wish you would, and I wish you'd forget this insane plan. I fear it will be the end of us both. And then Mysterio just vanishes right after that. And then Mo Man sighs. He's like, yo, gone without a whisper. That's why I'm afraid that when I need you the most, you're ultimately going to disappear. And then we see Kraven in the background here having Mo Man in the crosshairs because he's been seeing everything that's been going on at this point, or I should say up until this point. So then we return momentarily here back to Felicia and Richard. And Felicia is explaining here that her dad was the original Black Cat and how he was part of a supervillain group that basically runs a city, and how he got hurt, and instead of losing territory, he enlisted Felicia, who he'd been training secretly for years, to take his place, all while trying to convince Harry that she's not actually a supervillain. So then Felicia says that she didn't ask for this and she's doing her best, but she feels powerless and angry at the situation. So Richard replies, he's like, you don't have to be sorry. I'm glad we met, no matter how weird it was. And then Felicia asks, she's like, so my dad's a supervillain, but what about yours? What does yours do? So then the Pico suit warns Richard. He's like, listen, be careful. So then Richard replies back, he's like, listen, I'd love to tell you, but being that I'm a superhero, I'm meant to protect the identities of those who are close to him. And of course, all that does is it just makes Felicia more curious. Now next, when we jump back here to Harry and Peter, we see them setting up a booby trap here for Kraven, figuring that Kraven, an incredible tracker, will follow their trail, and if he touches the tripwire of their collar, that it will detonate. So then Harry says, he's like, listen, this probably won't kill him, but it will slow him down. So Peter's like, all right, it's good, we need that, but how's your leg? So Harry's like, yeah, this joint hurts. So Peter's like, okay, well, we're close to the edge right now and we should be out of here soon. But Harry, you know how he is. He's like, yo, I think that we should still stay here and fight and put an end to this problem and ultimately just cut this thing off at the source. But Peter's like, bro, we talked about this. MJ, the kids, they're out there right now unprotected with no idea what might be coming for them. But then in that moment, like Harry kind of pauses a little bit, which then gives Peter some pause. He's like, yo, what's going on, bro? What are you telling me? So then Harry's like, Gwen's not in danger, or at least she's probably not anyways. So Peter's like, yo, what are you talking about, dude? So this is when Harry starts to explain. He's like, have you ever heard of ransom insurance? Like if someone kidnapped me, like the insurance company would make sure the kidnappers are paid off if I'm returned, and how it ensures that things don't get out of hand. So then Peter's like, bro, I do not get this. So what Harry explains there, he's like, Gwen and I have an elevated version of that danger liability. If something happens to either of us, not only does someone try to resolve it, but the other person gets an extreme level of security. It's invisible to the person being protected, but effective. Otto created the protocols and he would have activated them by now. He would have done the same for you, but then they kind of go through this back and forth here because ultimately Otto Octavius still doesn't know who Peter Parker is. And Peter wouldn't tell him because of course Peter doesn't trust him. But all this really does is just like kind of amplify Peter Parker's point here. He's like, listen, your people are safe, but mine, like MJ and my kids, they're out there and they're all alone. And he's like, listen, we got to get out of here, Harry, and we're going to do it right now. Now, we jump back to this moment here where we're back close to where the hatch was that Mo Man had brought the Moloids out of. And all we see is just these bodies of Moloids all on the ground, right? And then when Mo Man comes over and talks to the surviving Moloid that's there, he's like, yo, what happened? Like, who who did this? And the Molar responds back, he's like, it was the man thing who hunts. And he's like, he knows that some of us can speak. So what he did was that he hurt and killed until he found someone who would tell him what he wanted. So Moman's like, okay, well, what did you tell him? Like, what happened? And that's when the Molar lets him know, he's like, where the tunnels go. So when we jump back here to Harry and Peter, they're jumping up here out of this like hatch or hole, or they're coming from somewhere. Either way, they're close by the tunnel, right? At the end of the tunnel. And all we hear here is a bat, bat, bat. Peter's like, get down. And all we see here is Kraven just firing off rounds, bat, bat, bat. So Peter, what he tells Harry to do, he's like, listen, go back where we came from, go to the hatch, right? And then what Peter does is that he jumps at Kraven. And it's crazy because this is basically point blank that this dude is firing at. And Peter Parker is dodging every single one of these. Like, dude has leveled up quite a bit here, right? And he realizes, because he hears the click, 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 he hears that Kraven is out. So then Kraven is like, bro, I have as many guns as there are ways to hunt my prey. And Kraven is like, don't you see? I have hunted everything and never failed to catch them. There is nowhere that you can run. So running will not save you. So then Peter's like, all right, fine. I guess I should stop then. And in that moment, Peter yells over to Harry. He's like, do it, Harry. So then Harry throws a rock and it hits the collar, and that detonates and goes boom. And you can see, like, right after that, like, Kraven, this dude took some hit. But all this does really is kind of just like fortify, you know, sort of Kraven's will here. He's like, yo, it's been some time since I've truly been tested. That was a good trap, but it wasn't enough. And I can tell you that you've never hunted. Haven't you heard the saying, there is nothing more dangerous than a wounded animal? So then Kraven pulls out that knife. He starts to go on the attack here at Peter. And Peter grabs this dude's wrist, clocks it to the side, and just like wham, right in the face of Kraven. And he tells him, I'm not gonna lie to you, this is kind of cocky by Peter. He's like, hunt's over, as he continues to just keep on punching him in the face with this one last wham right to the kisser. So Kraven's trying to grab another gun here, and Peter's like, now you need to understand this. There's only one way that this ends. He's like, you hurt us, you bled us, you learned everything you could about us, but you didn't really comprehend what you were hunting, did you? And I'm like, Peter, what you saying, fam? Go ahead. And as Kraven like lifts up the gun to go like fire at him, he takes the gun and he just, he breaks the gun in half. And he's like, did you really think that you could kill someone like me with a gun? He gets on top of him and he's like punching him in the face. He's like, you know what I understand now? I know what the line is because you crossed it. And listen, Peter is not holding back his punches here. At least it doesn't look like it is. And he's like, no one goes after my family. No one. But then this is kind of what messes it up, because I feel like he would have like completely taken out Kraven. But then Harry comes in and is like, do it, Peter, finish him. And that kind of makes Peter pause a little bit here, which is a mistake. And Peter continues on. He's like, no, I'm not like him. We're not him. He's going to forget everything that he knows, leave our city, and then never return. But then Harry's like, bro, what are you talking about? He's a killer. That's what he does. He won't stop until he wins. It's him or it's us. But what happened here is that Kraven pulled out another gun and Peter didn't see it. So then Kraven fires off a blam and it hits Peter right through his side. But Peter's a little confused because he's like, yo, what? Like you shot, but I didn't feel any danger. Why didn't I feel anything? And Kraven's like, it's because I was not aiming at you. And then Peter, like, you can see the fear in his eyes as Kraven continues to say, he's like, you were just in the way. So then Harry turns around and he yells, Harry, oh God, no. And all we see right here is like a bullet right in the middle of Harry's head. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then Kraven's like, you should have listened to your friend. He was right. I will never stop. The hunt never ends. So Peter now, dude is pissed. He's like, what did you do? And he's Like, he's going to town now on Kraven. He's like, what did you do? What did you do? But before, I swear, Peter probably would have done it in this moment. Like, he would have ended Kraven. But there's this voice that comes in that says, well, this is quite the dilemma. And when we look, we see it's Mysterio. And he's like, normally we would be enemies as our allegiances demand. But in this moment, that is not the case, because I am more interested in him than you, hero, for I have plans. But should he die, should you choose to continue beating him to death, then his end would mean my full attention would turn onto you. So I have to ask, is that what we really want? So Peter's like, bro, he killed my friend. So Mysterio's like, and like your friend said, he's a killer. And that's what killers do. So you have to wonder, if he's so good at it, what makes you think that your loved ones are safe? How do you know that he was not already sent, or he has not already sent someone to visit them? Honestly, what makes you think that they're still alive at all? So Peter's asking him the question. He's like, so what do you know? So Mysterio's like, listen, me personally, I have no idea, but I do think that you should run home, Peter Parker, run home now. So then later on, we see Peter stumbling into the apartment and he calls out for MJ. So then MJ turns around. She's like, Peter, is that you? And then she runs over to him and she's like, thank God. Like, she's worried, of course, right? She's like, where have you been? Do you have any idea how worried we were? Do you know how worried I was? How could you just disappear like that? How could you do that and not tell me? But then she realizes that dude is bleeding and he's bleeding everywhere. She's like, yo, why are you bleeding? And all Peter says, he's like, Harry's gone. So MJ's like, what? And with tears in his eyes, Peter says, he's like, Harry is dead. I could not save him. And of course, MJ is in shock. She's in disbelief here. And then Peter continues on. He's like, they know who we are, who we really are. They know about you. They know about the kids, our names, where we live. They know everything. So MJ, of course, naturally is getting scared here. She's like what? Like, so, and Peter's like, yo, I'm sorry. I'm just so sorry. So then MJ's like, so Peter, like, what do we do now? Like, what are we gonna do now? And Peter's like, the only thing that he could even think about was to say, we run. So, oh my goodness, I really could not believe that they killed off Harry Osborn. Like, I did not think that is something that would have happened. And now, like, Peter's response back is to run because he's trying to protect his family. This is in a way kind of like his Uncle Ben moment, right? Like, in this moment, like, he's lost somebody that's close to him after becoming Spider-Man. This is that moment for him here. Also curious, they're definitely setting up this like teenage romance here between Richard and Felicia. But also what I'm curious about here is that it seems like the Sinister Six, that they have a plan within plans here to probably double cross Kingpin somehow. And that I'm also looking to come to fruition as well. Listen, let me know what you think down below here in the comments about this particular issue. If you enjoyed this breakdown here, please don't forget to leave a like on this video because that does help out the YouTube algorithm. Also, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Also, if you're looking for ways to be able to support the channel here, we do have our Patreon membership where you can unlock and get exclusive perks in there as well. But it also is a way to support the channel. Appreciate you watching. And as always, thank you so much for kicking it with Keepin the Comic. Bye.